us know that together we are better, and understanding the impact of philanthropy, what we can do to transform communities is what we're all about. So today's panel is going to talk about some of the things that are at the core of what Exponent Philanthropy wants to accomplish. We are really committed to the power of lean funders being able to make an impact in communities. And at the center of that work is being committed to lifelong learning. So at this conference, we want to make sure that folks are sometimes beginning their journey, but also being in community with others to make sure that they take their initial starting point and make it grow to much larger impact by being with others. We want to transform communities by having deep relationships in our work. And one of the programs that Exponent Philanthropy has put together, the Catalytic Leadership in Philanthropy program, is really targeted of being able to have that kind of impact. So first and foremost, because I was at a talk very early this morning about for beginners in their journey, they don't necessarily understand all the acronyms or what all these things mean. So I want to have a show of hands. How many people have a sense of what this Catalytic Leadership in Philanthropy mean to them? All right, so there's room for growth in this. So hopefully by the end of this panel, you'll have a much better sense. But the program was really started by the great work of Andy Carroll, a senior advisor of Exponent Philanthropy, and helped develop in partnership with John Richardson and Pat Black of the Blackstone Ranch Institute that really contributed to the growth of this program. And Catalytic Leadership and Philanthropy is a mindset and practice that empowers lean, place-based foundations to unleash the full potential to spark transformative change on issues prioritized by local communities. So it's really grounding local knowledge and relationship and how we can be able to do this work. And we are really have the distinguished honor of having a panel that will let us know how we get that done on the federal partnership level down to the local, how we get that done in urban spaces and in community spaces. And I'm going to ask each panelist to introduce themselves and what they do, and then also like how they're partnering with philanthropy to transform communities. So first we have the distinct honor of having the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs of the U.S. Department of the Interior, Wizipan Little Elk Garriott, who's also an enrolled member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe in South Dakota. Can you tell us, because that's a big title, what you do and who you are, how you're showing into the space, and how philanthropy helps you have greater impact with the work that you do?
Absolutely, thank you. Hamitake pe iha chante wa stena pe chuza below. Wizipan emacha belona sichago la kota hemacha. Good morning. I greet each and every one of you with a good heart. My name is Wizipan, a citizen of the Rosebud Sioux tribe located in what is now known as South Dakota. And I serve as the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs. And what that means is that I serve under the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs and the Secretary of the Interior. And my role, I really see is on the execution side in carrying out our vision and our policy priorities and making sure that they get implemented within our department. And for background, Indian Affairs, which is within the Department of Interior, we serve as the main federal entity that works and coordinates and partners with the 574 federally recognized tribes in the United States. And we have a budget of around $3 billion and about 6,500 employees, which doesn't include all of the folks working within Indian country. And we work just about in every single area except for the provision of healthcare, which is handled by the Indian Health Service. With regard to our work in partnership with philanthropy, I think a lot of folks are hopefully familiar by now that there's a big discrepancy when it comes to Native Americans and when it comes to giving. Native Americans make up about 3% of the U.S. population, yet, depending on which study you're looking at, 0.004 to 0.0015% of philanthropy makes its way to Native-led organizations or tribes. That's not even 1%, right? So put that in context, right? That's 4 cents for every $100, or 0.15 cents for every $100 that's given makes its way to Native Americans, right? And so that's a big discrepancy. And one of the amazing opportunities that we have right now at this moment in our country's history, especially under the leadership of Secretary Holland, first Native American Secretary of the Interior, is the ability to begin shining a light on some areas where this country has a lot of work to do. And this discrepancy is something where we have a platform and are able to do something. And what we're doing is we have created the Office of Strategic Partnerships in partnership with Native Americans and philanthropy, with the entire goal of bringing philanthropy and tribes together, and especially if we can find ways to leverage federal investments that we're already making with tribes. And we've seen historic investments through bipartisan infrastructure law, through the Infrastructure Act. And so we're at an amazing moment and opportunity right now, and want to continue that conversation and help bring to light and bring more opportunities for Native America and for philanthropy to continue these partnerships.
Excellent, thank you for that. Diana Bucco, can you tell us about the work, well, who you are, where the Buhl Foundation is, and how your foundation is working deeply with community?
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you, Paul. And on behalf of my colleague, I just want to share that he shared with me every time we memorialize important sacred territory, we should all give $1 to a Native-led organization. So in the spirit of philanthropy, on behalf of my new friend, I encourage all of you to do that. So I'm Diana Bucco. I'm the president of the Buhl Foundation in Pittsburgh, and we were founded in 1927, so we're one of the oldest in the country and one of the first multi-purpose foundations. And I was hired in 2013 to bring a 90-year-old foundation into the 21st century and to reinvent it. And they thought maybe we can do it by being more focused and strategic. So we rolled into this methodology that was, one, you start by reaching out to residents and asking them what they want, what they need, and what is important to them. And in that spirit, you aspire to become an embedded philanthropist that you then allow to drive and shape your grant making. You then start with the issue, follow it with the good data, both primary and secondary, so it's all the great public data out there, but then through one-on-one interviews. I personally did 400 in the first year, just to understand how issues were personally affecting people's lives. And then from there, really begin to craft strategies. And what we began to understand is the real magic of any change agenda are people. And if we can put people in a position to create the change they want to see, then as a philanthropist, I've hit a home run. And so we do that. We've sort of defined a geographic area and said, you all are the magic. And together, we're going to do demonstration projects that are going to do two things. The first is what you want to see happen, which is improved quality of life of all residents, which is CAPS for all, right? And then the second is, how do we use these not to advocate for new dollars, but to demonstrate to our systems, because if you think about the systems, the one I'm focusing on, safety, health, education, employment, and place, we have billions invested, and yet things aren't necessarily improving. So how can we teach our systems how to pivot, to invest in a way that leverages greater outcomes? And as a small to mid-sized foundations, we can't do any of that on our own. So we realized that the way to get it done is to leverage both our human capital and our resources. So our human capital, our staff and our board has tremendous ability to convene. And what I say today is I block and pivot to make it possible both for residents and for systems to be innovative. We connect people and places to resources, and then finally, we catalyze. So we no longer make individual grants. We have a 20-year comprehensive plan where we want to see real change in those 5 pillars I just mentioned. And then what we do is we invest in local projects that are intended to roll it out. And I will give just one quick example to make it real, and then if we want more, we can go back. I can give you a local, a state, a federal example, and I think the one I'm going to emphasize right now is think public schools. Post-COVID, the degree of violence, all our schools were suffering from it, right? Our kids didn't know how. So we work with the lowest performing school in Pittsburgh and said, we're gonna spend our time making it a high performing school. When schools resumed, you couldn't do anything until you got the buildings safe. So in a partnership with the residents and with the district, meaning superintendent, board, all of the key leaders, we came up with a solution that we rolled out that put residents, people who the kids know and respect into the buildings. Since we've done that to today, this project saw a reduction in suspensions by 10%. Saw an increase or a reduction in chronic absenteeism by 10%, it was about 12%. It went up a little bit in May because, you know, kids quit going to school in May. But third, it also saw for the first time job satisfaction by the teachers. And it's the only school in the district that's edging green in all 3 of those buckets. The city, of course, got wind of it because we worked in partnership with the city. They had the opportunity to apply for state funds and leveraged $2.5 million to roll this out now in 8 other communities, and it is now being done in partnership with the district with data sharing. So they can capture the data on what's happening in these 8 schools, capture the behavior and the cultural change, because that's really what this is about, among the students that will then allow them to take this to scale within the entire district. So that's just one example. What we do is innovate at the local level, work in partnership with the residents to solve the problem. Once we get it right, then we look at how we scale it up by leveraging outside resources. So in that case, Buhl's tiny little bit of money in that was far less important, actually, it's important to note, far less important than the capacity building we did around convening, around cooperation, and around partnership that then led to real tangible outcomes that then allowed us to leverage dollars to get this rolled out. And once we succeed in these 8 schools, the district will eventually incorporate it into the way they do business. And so for us, that's how you take a very local project, innovate, help our systems change, and leverage dollars to get that done.
Thank you, Diana. And Adam Sanders, president of the Roy and Gwen Steeley Foundation. You're not in a big urban city, not Pittsburgh. So can you tell us a little bit about your philanthropy and how you are using it to transform community where you are?
Absolutely. So the foundation is in Martinsburg, West Virginia. If you go about an hour and 45 due west of here, we're in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. Thank you for the invitation, Paul. And this is a great looking crowd for somewhat early in the morning. So our approach to philanthropy has changed over the last couple years. We see our granting dollars through the lens of leveraging and exclusively leveraging. And what I mean by that, at the end of the year, can we look back and see our dollars invested in our community have a leverage component? Meaning, at the end of the year, do we have a leverage of 2 times our investment? And we're doing that by helping our community, providing our community with a team of grant writers, grant researchers, and providing a matching pool that we've set aside for the community to say, hey, a lot of the grants that you're going to go after have a matching pool. Because if you're a private family foundation in the room, you know, we only have 5% of our corpus to spend each year. That's the minimum. Some do more, some do less. But cutting a check every year is certainly valuable to a nonprofit, but if we can partner with them with a team, because there's a lot of federal dollars available, and there's a lot of private family foundations that have a lot of grants that are available. If we can provide our community, and we invest in education in the Panhandle, so we've partnered with the superintendents of the school, we partner with the nonprofits doing the after-school programs, youth mentoring, and our greatest value, I think, now to our community is not necessarily in the checks that we cut, it's the team that we've funded to provide them and partner with them saying, hey, there are granting opportunities out there that are much larger than us. We will help you find those grants. We will write them for you. We'll manage them if need be. And we've set aside dollars to leverage our resources. And just to give you an idea of for us the board likes to get to the end of the year and ask themselves, well, what did we do? What is the win? And if you quantify it, if you will, through a leverage component, well, at the end of 2023, we were looking like we're going to have about a 12x return on our investment into the community. And for us, that has to have more impact than just cutting our own checks and meeting our 5%. So we feel that the best partnership we can provide to our community, being just a staff of 2, is providing the team, investing in the people that are experts in writing federal grants, private family foundation grants, and gifting those to our community. And so far, it's been very, very impactful. We're just on this journey. It's our 3rd year in this endeavor, but most of our granting budget this year has been, I guess you call it eaten up, if you will, with this leveraging idea. And most of it is going to matching dollars. In rural, it's hard. There's almost like 3 strikes against rural. They don't know of a grant, they don't know how to apply for a grant, and they certainly don't have the matching funds to go after the grant. So again, we as a foundation are providing that solution to our community. So it's a leveraging lens.
Excellent. So we heard examples of using data and bringing people together around a data-based conversation to catalyze knowledge and capacity to move initiatives forward. We talked about a tool like a matching grant to allow folks to be able to hopefully unleash the power of other philanthropy that might be available in the community to move something forward. We talked about some people that are at the beginning of their journey, and all of us in here are representing lean funders. So some of this is daunting. You know, how am I going to collect the data? How do I put together a matching program? How do I talk to the federal government? So I wanted to have all of the panelists talk a little bit about what are some of the first steps to be able to partner, to have deeper relationship with community. And I want to start with Secretary Garriott about how can a local foundation approach you in partnership? Like, how can you have a conversation in partnership in a way that's accessible and not so daunting?
Thanks. I think the first thing is, you know, we have an office that's being stood up. My colleague, Rachel here, she's kind of always serves as one of our point folks. But through Native Americans and Philanthropy, you know, we actually have 2 people that will be coming on board and will be through what's called an IPA. They will become employees of the federal government for several years to help lead this effort. And so reaching out to our office, contacting us directly. We're fairly easy to access, fairly easy to get a hold of, at which point we would then have a conversation and begin, you know, finding and begin that matchmaking side of things. We also are making a lot of investments ourselves, particularly around conservation, education, and economic development. And we have initiatives under each one of those areas that are developed in partnership and are responsive to the needs of Indian country. And so there's never a lack of opportunity or a lack of place to put some of your funding. Generally, I think one thing that's really important is to ask the experts. Prior to joining the administration, I ran an ecosystem of organizations that consisted of my tribe's Economic Development Corporation with 17 subsidiary businesses underneath it, a nonprofit that functioned in a traditional nonprofit way that really worked within the community, as well as a CDFI to begin to bring all 3 of those kinds of entities under one shared strategy. And when I left, we were standing up a policy shop that worked not only at the tribal level, but also at the federal level to really bring all of that together, because no single entity by itself can really tackle all of those problems, those challenges. And so being able to talk to the people who are local, who they're the ones that have the solutions. And it's going to be different for every single community. And while I'm going to put my old hat back on, but the unrestricted funding is by far the best. And I think also just carving out a space and saying that if we're going to use words like equity and justice and these kind of like words that feel good, that's got to be backed up by action. And in this space, that action is backed up by money, right? And so carving out that space to work with the Native Americans, with the tribes, with the Native communities in your area is going to be really important to just kind of start with that mindset that I'm just going to carve this space aside, I'm going to put this money aside, and we're going to go figure this out because good money will always attract good projects.
Really quickly, general operating funds versus restricted funding. It allows for leaders to really do the work in a way that their knowledge and their expertise is really put to the fore and to the center.
And just one point on that, the last thing I did right before joining the administration is we had a funder who gave us $150,000 in unrestricted funding. What I did with that is I took that and we created a job for somebody whose sole purpose in life was to go find other federal funding with the goal of 10x, right? So take 150,000, turn it into 1.5, and that's what we were defining as success. And I think they've surpassed that, but that's the model.
Diana, what can the lean funder do to engage in this deeper work that might seem daunting?
Yeah. So one, I agree with you completely. And I'm a social entrepreneur at heart, launched several nonprofits. And when I first started, I would hear a lot of nonprofits, particularly minority-led, say they give us just enough to fail. So when I got the chance to be a grant maker, I make sure that we give unrestricted. It's toward a shared vision, but it's clearly unrestricted and long-term. So our anchors, we work with over a long period of time, and what that's led to is problem solving rather than proving that we're doing the job,
check
right?
1 2, check 1 2, mic check 1 2, check.
I think
I
we
swear
might
that's
be
not
on
me.
Mic
conflicting
check 1 2,
systems.
check
Okay.
1 2.
So I hope they don't say anything
Check.
inappropriate in another room.
Mic check 1 2, check.
If
So-
someone could let one of the
2.
side rooms know, that would be really
Okay.
helpful.
So I'll be brief. So what I would say, because I'm going to leave room for Adam, I was so worried about this. So what I would say for those of us, when we started this in 2013, there were 2 of us. And what we did was first of all, I went to the universities and said, hey, I need the secondary data. Can you pull it for me? There's a research entity there that pulled all of the publicly available data on the geographic area and the issues I was trying to understand. And then I did those personal interviews. That was the first thing. The second then was, once I understood the issues, I went and found folks in the community who were the experts on those topics, who have a reputation for getting things done. And I asked them if they would just come and meet as a group with me to begin to problem solve. And as I began to formulate a plan, I asked them to give feedback on it, because what I find is that always collectively results in a better outcome. And then as that plan became clear, that's when we started to do grant making around it, and in that long-term way that was finding anchors and provided sustained support. But when I talk about no longer funding programs and catalyzing, those partners have all bought into the One North side, right? So they are dedicated to shared outcomes, kind of like a collective impact model, although I wouldn't be so bold to call it that, but they're bought into those shared outcomes so that we are consistently working together to problem solve, and then what that's allowing is them to leverage significant dollars based on this sustained grant that they're getting from the Buhl Foundation.
So highlighting the fact that when you're lean, you don't have to do everything. No one should be all things to all people. So you can benefit from research that community partners are doing. That's another way to get great buy-in, because you're validating another partner that's already in community, and you're building that collaboration, and you can build that larger buy-in for the larger plan as folks see themselves in the plan.
Thank you.
Adam.
So for the private family foundations in the room that are lean and are just starting off in this philanthropic business, if you will, first thing I would say is there's really no right or wrong way to do this business. There's a lot of room to wiggle, if you will, and I would just relax if you're a small staff. and try to keep things simple. You know, in a world where everything is connected, social media, there is a tendency to overanalyze, and there's quantitative and qualitative, and should we do quarterly reporting or you can get lost in the data, if you will. We in our journey learned that when we were interviewing other foundations as we were starting as a private family foundation, we learned that the foundations that kept things simple, their board was happier and their staff was much happier. For instance, we consider ourselves like a relational-based foundation. You really can't find us. We don't have an online presence. We don't have an online application. We don't have any kind of formal reporting requirements, which I know some of you are rolling your eyes in the back of your head. We like to say we have common sense reporting. If we're going to help the school purchase for instance, I'll give you an example. We help a school renovate a bus. It was a mobile learning bus that went around in the community during the summertime. I don't need to know how many miles that bus has driven or how many students or how many books. I just need to show up, or this is what I did. I showed up, I looked at the bus when it was finished, and I went back to the office. That was all I needed to know. And I would just highly encourage you to keep it simple and know that the business, if you will, that you work in, there's really no right or wrong way to do it. And what a gift that you are a part of to be able to bless the community with dollars and investment. We're not on the other side where we have to raise funds. We are funded, and what a tremendous asset that is. So I think having that spirit of keep it simple, there's no right or wrong way to do it. And for us, in order to be a relational foundation with only a staff of 2, we do employ some of the tables outside. Foundation Source allows us, they didn't pay me to say this, but Foundation Source, their support allows us to be in the community and not behind the desk reviewing papers. So I never have to say no to anybody. We engage with the nonprofits and the schools that we want to, and we have very productive, and we simply sit down with our grantees and ask them, how can we help you? Period. It's not we're the experts and we're going to impose our great thinking of what you should do with your program. How can we help you? And we are the funders, we're not the doers. So I think if you keep that in mind, we try to keep that in mind ourselves. Again, there's no right or wrong way to do this business, but it really allows us to be lean and hopefully drive impact in the community.
And that's great. Keeping it simple and making it about relationships, and what you were saying about there are doers out there, that including them in the work can really ground the impact. Not about us, without us is the way to think about that. So with the 30-second of closing remarks and thoughts, can you tell the audience, why do you think relationships matter, and why do you think relationships make the quality of the work deeper than just coming in with some philanthropy that comes in from above? What kind of impact can you have?
I think that the universe is built on relationships, and that who are we to kind of go against the way the natural world works, and that everything has an impact on everything else, and that we should be imitating and taking the models that the earth and the world has developed and finding ways to bring that into the way that we do our work.
The way we say it is, at the end of the day, it's all about trust. And it's building relationships that allow that trust so that we can really address hard issues. Sometimes we have to absorb the pain of our partners, be transparent, and let them know that day in and day out, not just when it's good, but when it doesn't go well, we're going to be there for them. And that's impossible to do if there isn't a foundation of trust.
If you value relationship, it'll show up in your granting. You'll start to give more to people rather than programs. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And the grantees that you give to, it's the people that make their work great. It's not the program itself. So invest in people as much as you do in the programs.
Well, let's thank Wizipan, Diana, and Adam for their examples. And there are many more examples of great work and relationship building that are happening in your communities around your table. So we really invite you to be in community with one another, to figure out how you can transform the places that you live and work, because together, all of the work that we do, I think, are shining examples of what philanthropy can be for the nation and hopefully making a better world. I wanted to point out that there's a full conference agenda that's available. If you haven't already, you can look at the back of your conference badges and use the QR code so that you can see all the other wonderful conversations that are happening, small and large, that you can partake in. We also want to make sure that you connect with one another and share, because this community is critically important for how we can make an impact. And you fed your minds this morning. We also make sure that you feed your bellies. So outside there are 3 tables of brunch that we want you to partake in. And we look forward to seeing you through the rest of the conference. And thank you for this morning.